Guys, we are continuing in our theme, and we've been talking in the last few weeks about this one thing. You heard Errol speak about it just now, and as he prayed. And our thesis is simply based upon the fact that in every area of life, no matter what the challenge, no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the situation, there is generally one thing, if you do it, and the big thing is if you do that one thing, it will make many other things either easier to do or not even necessary to do, if you will just do that one thing. Now, this is a series we've embarked upon. This is number 4 in the series. I would urge you, if this is the first time you've come, or if you've missed out on some, you can get them down on that computer thing of yours and download them and watch them, just so that you pick up the continuity, so I don't have to repeat myself every week. But the whole thing is based upon this one thing. And so far in our journey, we've looked at this one thing that I know. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you may need to know. But we said that knowledge is kind of overrated. So the next week we said, out of what we know, there's something we may need to do. And so we've been going through this thing. Today, I want to talk about one thing that is necessary. In your life, as you live your lives, in every area of your life, there may just be one thing. In fact, I know there is one thing that is necessary. If you do it, there's our thesis, it will either make a whole bunch of other stuff irrelevant or easy to do, if you will just do that one thing that is necessary. So would you turn to Luke chapter 10? This is our passage for today. One thing that is necessary. It's a well-known story of Mary and Martha as they were with Jesus in their house one day. Let me read it to you. Luke chapter 10, and I'm going to read from verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Great thing to do. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is necessary." One thing. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. That one thing that is necessary. Now, in the context of Mary's and Martha's life, is that one thing was to simply sit at the feet of Jesus. The one thing that is necessary might just be different dependent upon your circumstance. But I want to hone in on this one, that if we learned what it meant to really sit at the feet of Jesus, then I'm pretty sure a whole lot of other things are going to become easier to do or probably irrelevant. So we're going to stick as closely to the Mary-Martha theme today in the context of the need that they were facing. Now, this passage has challenged us theologically, because there are many other passages in the Bible that speak about nothing is going to be done unless we pick up the mantle of work and we do stuff. Remember the parable we refer to often about the king and the stewards? The stewards had to work. I don't want to be seen to knock work too much, because there is very much a theology that would suggest that work can be a good thing. But there is a warning that goes to all of those who think that work is the be-all and end-all of their Christian faith. As good as work can, it is not an end in itself. It is a means to another end. And if we miss that, we have missed the point completely. So what I want to do is just point you to 2 other warning passages to pick up the warning that we workers, if you feel that you want to do stuff and work, and I'm one of them, I want to do stuff, there's a warning that comes to us. In Revelation chapter 2, if you will have a look at warning number 1 that comes to workers, Revelation chapter 2 has one of them for you. It's the voice of the angel to the church in Ephesus, and says this: "I know your deeds, your hard work, and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked men, and that you have been tested, those who claim to be apostles but are not, and have found them false. You have persevered, and you have endured hardship for my name, and have not grown weary. This looks like a good working church. And yet here's the warning. Yet I have this against you. You have forsaken your first love. Remember the height from which you have fallen. Repent and do the things that you did at first. There's a warning there to those who think that work is the be-all. If you're doing the work and you've lost your first love, all that effort has been wasted. It gets more intense than even that. If you would turn to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7 is a huge warning to those who think that it's all just about work. Here's what Jesus says. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles. These guys were workers. And then I will tell you plainly, I never knew you. Depart from me, you evil doers. So there's a warning that goes out to those who feel that work is the be-all and end-all of everything. That sometimes we can work and we're not even known by God. And we will be doing the work. You can prophesy, cast out demons, do what you like. If you don't know Him, it means nothing. And if you do all those things as a means to the wrong end and you don't have your first love, it means nothing. So there is a warning that goes out to workers that is epitomized and pictured so beautifully in this particular passage. Now, the story is not difficult to know what this one thing is. For Mary, it was just to simply sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to Him. That was the one thing that was necessary. So to every worker out there today, and I know we have some, I'm going to suggest to you that before we do work, we need to sit at His feet and listen to Him. I loved what Chantel did under the covering of the umbrellas. Did you notice that? We planned that. And that was not by accident, because under the umbrella of worship comes work. Work is not the umbrella. Worship is the umbrella. And work is an aspect that comes under the covering of this thing called work. It's about today sitting at the feet of Jesus. Now, the key phrase, and I'm going to do this in two sections today, is found first of all, in the word sit. She sat at the feet of Jesus. Now, there was something typical. The Bible never wastes words. It always uses words so that we can derive some meaning and some purpose from them. It says she sat at the feet of Jesus as she listened to Him. This was the better thing. Now, to sit in many ways would signify a couple of things. Let me give you a few of them. The first thing, that the position or the posture of sitting will indicate the posture of submission. Submission. She was saying, Jesus, you get bigger as I get smaller. Jesus, you get larger as I get less. She was saying, as I get smaller, Jesus, it gives me more opportunity to see the bigness of who you are. I will sit in your presence so that you can be bigger. This submission thing, we've just sang a beautiful song about surrender. Surrender is not a popular thing. The terminology suggests that we're weak when we surrender. The terminology would suggest that we've been defeated and that we surrender. Not true at all. It's out of the position of surrender that gives us the real power, because the real power is not in us. The real power is in God. And when we surrender to Him and to His will, He is then able to say, okay, once you've taken your hands off the situation and given it to me and you submit to me, then I'm able to do stuff. People, we hold on to our stuff and the things we have to do far too tightly. If we could surrender those things to God, God will still make us do stuff. I'm sure there will be an element of that. But the attitude of surrender has to permeate everything that we do, because it's all under the umbrella of worship, to sit at His feet. In Romans 12, it says this, talking about surrender. Offer yourselves as a living sacrifice to God, dedicated to His service and pleasing to Him. And it encapsulates by saying, this is true worship. To offer yourselves as a sacrifice, a living sacrifice to God, that, people, is true worship. It's an intriguing picture, is it not? In the Old Testament, they would have understood this. They would have built an altar, killed an animal, and they would put that animal and poured the blood and a whole lot of other things upon an altar in order for the sacrifice to be legitimate. Something had to die. In our case, we are living. But there's an aspect of who we are that needs to die. Our egos need to die. Our desire for our will needs to die. Our desire for our own self-esteem and our own self-worth has to die when we lay ourselves upon the altar. You know, when Isaac was laid upon the altar, I've often wondered in that picture what the conversation must have been like between his dad and him. When he took his son and he laid his son upon the altar. And I wonder if the son fought a bit. I wonder if the son said, Dad, what are you doing? This is not good. Dad, I don't want to die. Dad, what are you doing? And Abraham would have to say, my boy, God knows what he's doing. You have to die in order for him to get what he wants. But let me tell you, people, when Abraham laid Isaac upon the altar, he may as well have died. Because every dream, every vision, every purpose, everything that he had ever dreamed and been told by God was going to happen was wrapped up in that kid who he now laid upon the altar. That kid had to die. And it was true that even Abraham was saying, Lord, I don't know how you're going to do this. You promised me an inheritance of many millions of people. It's more than the stars in the sky. And now I have to kill that which this generation will be born through. I don't understand. But if that's what you want, I'm willing to do it. And he surrendered his dream and his vision, everything, as wrapped up in that kid. He was willing to surrender to God himself. And so it's first of all a posture of submission. God, you get bigger as I get smaller. The second aspect is it's a faith posture. When you sit at the feet of Jesus, it's a great declaration of faith. Because when you're sitting at the feet of Jesus, you can't do anything. So you have to be trusting God to do the things that you would ordinarily want to do. In order to sit by faith, you have to say, Lord, let the dishes sit in the sink. Let the things take place because I need to sit with you. I'm going to trust you to do everything that you know that I need to know that I need to do. And so when she sat at Jesus' feet, she was releasing all her cares, all her concerns, all her duties, all of the things that she knew that she needed to do. She was saying, Lord, I'm putting those all on hold for this period of time that I will sit at your feet. Not only is it as a posture of submission, but it's a great posture of faith. Giving over control of your life to God. To say that all must go. Some of it is desirable, but it's certainly not all necessary. And as I give up that which is desirable for that which is necessary, all of a sudden we begin to understand what it means to sit at Jesus' feet. The next aspect is that this is a great posture for a disciple. In a good Jewish context, the disciples would have sat at a rabbi's feet. And the rabbi would just have spoken, and they would have been like sponges. They would have soaked it all in, and they would have listened very carefully. It was a great posture of being able to say, Lord, this is not just about submission. It's not just about faith. But I want to be a disciple, because not only was she sitting, but it said that she also was listening. It's not just sitting at the feet of Jesus. It's about sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening for his voice. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could respond in the same way that Samuel did when he went to Eli 3 times that night, where he heard God calling his name? And he says Eli says to him, Samuel, that's 3 times now. I don't think it's me calling you. In fact, I know it's not me calling you. It's God that is calling you. When you hear God call you and speak again, say this: it is me, Lord, I hear you. Go ahead and speak. Your servant is listening. And if we could take on that attitude, that through our time of sitting at the feet of Jesus, and I have to tell you people, a lot of church, what we do here, is about sitting at his feet. I'm asking you to get rid of the thoughts of the week. I'm asking you to get rid of the cares of the day and sit at his feet and listen for his voice. You don't have to just do it in church. You can do it at home. You can do it driving your car. You need to do it in the context of a time every day where you either spend time in quiet with God, reading his word. It's called a quiet time, and it is a quiet time where we don't say anything. We just learn to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen. And then when we hear him speak, we say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. It's also a posture, funnily enough, of service. And you said, hey, I thought that Martha was serving. Indeed, she was. But there's an act of service to God that makes God feel well honored and well glorified when you sit quiet at His feet. And when you are attentive to God, and when you're listening to what God is saying, God gets excited about that. Just like I get excited as a preacher when I see you listening to me. Don't look out the window, I see you. You know, I can see you everywhere. That's why you guys sit here, so you can count how many ships go past. But when you are attentive, it does something to my heart, and I leave from here today saying, man, can it get any better than that? These people listened. They were attentive to what I thought God was saying to them, and I hope was true, and I hope it meant something. The moment you start yawning and look at it, and I see, every time you look at your watch, I see you. I see it's almost uncanny. Like, look at you every time. Look at it. I'll catch you. I'll catch you. But when you are attentive and when you show that you're interested, something happens in my heart. And I feel ministered to. So when Mary did this to Jesus, Jesus was overwhelmed with the awareness that she was aware. And as she was aware, God was able to not just speak into her heart, but her just sitting at His feet, listening to Him, was a blessing to God Himself. So be attentive when you hear God speak. It's a posture of service. Let me notice lastly that this under this section is a posture that requires willingness. Nobody's being forced here. Mary came willingly to Jesus' feet. Jesus didn't say, okay, people, it's now 9 o'clock. You must now sit at my feet and you must... No. Mary couldn't wait to get to the feet of Jesus. Mary couldn't wait to say, this is my time. Imagine if we came to church with that sense of enthusiasm, that I'm going to hear from God, and I'm going to give to God, and it's not about you. Worship at church and people is not about you, it's about Him. I often have people come and say, hey, Trev, it wasn't so good today, hey? I didn't get much out of your sermon or much out of the worship. And I'm saying, why would you think you would get anything? It's not about you. It's about what you give to God as you willingly come and excitingly come to sit in His presence and to hear from Him. People, it's not about you. Church, this is not about you. It's about what you get to bring, not about what you get. That's the true essence of worship. And we begin to worship God like that. Some people who come to church or need to sit at Jesus' feet need to be forced to get here. I can remember as a child being forced to go to church. I wasn't the best then. Some people need to be bribed in order to get here. Some people need to be entertained. Oh, we'll be entertained today. Worship is going to be great. We're going to have great music, and hopefully He will say something decent to us today. And people want to be entertained in order to, if we entertain enough, then people will come. And there's an entertainment mentality that has pervaded and invaded the church today. If we entertain, people come. They come for the wrong reason. I hope you don't come to church to be entertained. I hope you come for the willingness that I'm going to sit at Jesus' feet and I'm going to hear from Him today. I'm going to give Him my attention so that He feels honored as we leave after completion of church. That's the first aspect of this word, sit. There's a couple of more key words that I want to just look to in the second section here. A couple of key words. Here's the first one. Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is necessary. It's that big but. But this one thing is necessary. That but turns things around. It always does in the Bible. Whenever you see a but, you must know that something good is going to come thereafter. But this one thing is necessary. You see, there was a lot of hard work going on over there, and I advocate hard work. There was a lot of people who get up early in the morning and go to bed late because they have to work. There are some who've got huge responsibilities that they need to fulfill. There's more pressure. I've got to feed the family. You've got to keep the kids. I've got to do all those sort of things. And there's an enormous amount of pressure. But I have to ask you, but is that all there is to life? But is there any, maybe there's something more. But maybe if we did this one thing, it would change the perspective of those things. But there has to be more than just that stuff. For some people, they just live to exist, to survive. And my heart goes out to people in that mode. where they have to make ends meet and their jobs are poor and their salary is poor and the pressures are high and it's huge and they've got to survive. But there's got to be more than just survival. What about those who have got some means and they're able to make money and they do well and they toil and they think 1 more million? And when I ask you, when is enough enough? And they're working for that extra money to go on that extra holiday to buy some extra stuff. But is that all there is to life? What about others who have great stuff? I have nothing against that. But when you enjoy all your stuff and this party and its extravagance, but I have to tell you, is that all there is to life? I don't know if you've ever seen the cartoon. At the end of some of the Disney cartoons, there's a picture of it, just comes up on the screen at the very end, and it's of Bugs Bunny, and he says, "That's all, folks. That's all, folks." Have you seen that? That's all, folks. Well, at many end of many people's lives, you could put that. That's all, folks. This guy just chased the money, he chased the dreams, he chased the purpose, he chased the power, he chased the prestige, he chased all of that stuff. That's all, folks. That would be a great way to do a funeral. Stand up one day at one of these types of people and say, "Okay, folks, that's all, folks." That's his life. But sadly, I have to tell people, in many cases, it's true. But is it all that there is? No, it's not. Even for those who have been Christians for a while, and we get terribly religious and we think the law is all there is, but there's more to it than the law. What about the fact of the religion or the rituals and the readings and all of the stuff that we have to do? And in and of themselves, there's nothing wrong with them. But is that all there is? No, indeed, there is a whole bunch more. And Mary found it. Sitting at the feet of Jesus, just listening for him. It's all about the wellness of soul. I'm intrigued with extremes. Errol shared with me a great story this last week, and you'll find it in 2 passages in the scripture. And he entitled it "One Life, but 2 Stories." And it's the story of a king. His name was Manasseh. Manasseh was a particularly wicked king. And he took over and he desecrated the temple. He got the nation into idol worship. He was such a wicked man, he even sacrificed his sons on the altar. He went into the temple of God and he desecrated the temple of God with idols. And he knew full well the commandments, and he'd seen it in previous kings, how they had honored God, but he didn't do that. And if you read his story in 2 Kings chapter 21, I haven't got time, my time is going to read it for you now. You will see a picture of hopelessness. A man who sinned so badly that his life was so disgusting, and yet the crazy thing was, read the same story, almost the same wording in 2 Chronicles chapter 33. And it starts his story saying the same thing as 2 Kings chapter 21, about how wicked he was in every way. But then all of a sudden there's a big but. There's a big but here, where all of a sudden it says this of King Manasseh, that God delivered him from Israel and put a hook in his nose, and the Assyrians took him as an exile, as a prisoner to their nation. And they took the king and they bound him, it says, in bronze shackles. They put a hook in his nose and they dragged him all the way back to their nation. And it says there that while he was in crisis, he cried out to the Lord of his father. And he cried out to the Lord of Israel and the God Jehovah. And God delivered him. And God sent him back. And every wrong that he had done, he made up for. All those idols that he had done, he threw them out. All of those terrible things he did in the temple, he repented for them, and he restored Israel to legitimate worship. It's one story, but 2 lives. We all have the opportunity to do that. You are one life, but 2 stories. I wonder what your story says. Is your story a one-sided story? That's all, folks? Or will there be but another section of your story like his was? I'm amazed at this, how low people can go, but the ability of God to go even lower. It's crazy that God would forgive him for desecrating his holy temple, that God would forgive him for sacrificing his sons on the altar. How amazing is the wonder of God's grace. Man, one life, but two incredible stories. So the first but is this key word. The next one that I want to talk about is the word necessary. Necessary. There are some things that are desirable, but are not really necessary. It's not wrong to desire after those things. It says, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. It doesn't say you can't seek after them. It just says seek after God first. He has to be number one. And it's not illegitimate to search and to strive after some of those other. They can be good in and of themselves. But when they become number one, that's when we have our point of departure from where God would want us to be. Why is it necessary to sit at the feet of Jesus and to listen? Well, my answer to that is simply, you need it because it's food for your soul. There are lots of things that are desirable, but there's only a few things that are necessary. And your soul, people, needs to be fed. And when you sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to Him, something happens inside of your soul that is necessary. It is that one thing that is necessary. For those of you who like to cook, I'm a great cook, by the way. You've got to have one of my poikies. I really make a good poikie and a pancake. But when you make a cake, I don't do well with cakes. You know, I keep forgetting to put the baking powder in. The baking powder is necessary, you know that. But I keep thinking, man, I don't need baking powder. Baking powder is dry. It's such a little bit. It's a tiny 1 teaspoon. What the heck difference can that make? But when I think of a cake, I think, can I put some more sugar in here? Let me put a little more of the delectable stuff. Let me put a little bit more of the good stuff in here, and the cream and the sugar. Let me put a little bit more of that stuff in. It's highly desirable, but it's nowhere near as necessary as the baking powder, boring old baking powder. If I don't do it, what happens to the cake? It ends up as a pancake, and you don't get anything out of it. You see, people, it's kind of like that in life. There are a lot of things that are desirable, but there's only one thing at the end of the day that is necessary, and this is it. If you do this one thing, then a whole lot of other things are going to become unnecessary or easier to do. If you will just do this one thing and take time, not just on a Sunday morning between 9 and 10:30, but every day to sit at His feet and listen to what He has to say. My time is gone. I'm going to skip to the end here. Let me conclude by saying this. You know, it's a great story, the story of Mary and Martha and Jesus. But I wonder how it ended. I wonder if Mary said to Martha, Martha, just hang in there. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. I'll come and help you in the kitchen just now. I don't think it ended like that. I wonder if it ended with Martha saying, oh, Lord, you're right. Leave those dishes in the sink. Leave them. And let me join Mary. We don't know how the ending was. I would like to think it ended like that. I would like to think Martha saying, oh, for goodness sake, you're right. Why am I sweating over this stuff? Why am I so distracted by all of these things? I'm just going to leave him. Mary, can I join you at the feet of Jesus and listen to Him? The thing about it is, it's a choice. It says in verse 42, Mary has chosen the better way. She chose it. She wasn't bullied into it. She wasn't cajoled into it. She wasn't forced. She chose the better way. Now, I'm sure that the way of Martha was not a bad way, but the way of Mary was a better way. But I still think that possibly, and I'm reading into it here, there's still the best way to come. You see, what she was doing in the kitchen was not bad. Who could say it was bad? Nobody could say it was bad. But it certainly wasn't better. But I'd like to assume that there is still the best, or even the beautiful, that is still to come. Where you're able to, under the umbrella of sitting at the feet of Jesus, do everything that God has called you to do in the label of work, and that, people, is beautiful. It's not just best, it's beautiful. And if we could do what we do under the covering of worship and sitting at the feet of Jesus, man, what a difference that would make in our lives. I wonder how the story ended. We know how Jesus ended. It was probably a veiled invitation to say to Martha, Martha, Mary's found a better thing. Hint, hint. Do you want to pull in here? Do you want to do the same thing? We don't know how it ended, but you get to make that choice today. Why are you so distracted by so many things? Why are you so distracted about all those things? Why are you distracted by things that are desirable but not necessary? As we close our service today, I would really like to ask that you would contemplate the choice that you're faced with today. It's a choice. Mary chose the better way. You get to make that choice today and in the days to come as well. And I really hope that you will make that choice. So today, maybe you're busy, you need to check out and make a decent choice. Maybe you're broken-hearted today, and your brokenheartedness is distracting you. I trust you will make a good choice. Maybe you're backslidden today, and the reason that you have backslidden and have lost your connection with God is for this very reason. You forgot to sit at His feet. To those of you who are burdened today, to those of you who are brokenhearted, to those of you who are busy, to those of you who are burnt out today, the reason you are burnt out is because you haven't done this. I trust, beloved, that we will learn what it means to sit at the feet of Jesus, and out of that begin to be a blessing as we work together for the cause of His kingdom. Let's pray. Won't you sing with me? The guy who wrote this song must have had my sermon in mind. He wrote this song. Sing it with me. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of the earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Let's sing that again. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of the earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Folks, why don't you just take a moment, just sit in quiet, contemplate what we've spoken about today, and you tell God what choice you're going to make this week. If you're going to make the choice to be distracted, and that's up to you, and God will understand that. But I trust that you will speak to Him now about what it means to make the necessary choice, the better choice. Let's just sit for 1 minute and contemplate this before the team lead us in our closing song.